Adopting a child can be a life-changing event, both for the parents and for the child being adopted. But it's often an expensive process, with costs running into the thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. But the federal government offers a tax credit that can defray much or even all of the cost of an adoption. I'm the Tax Geek, and here is the adoption credit, oversimplified. Under the adoption credit, adoptive parents can take a dollar-for-dollar tax credit of up to $15,950 in eligible expenses per child adopted. Eligible expenses can include adoption fees, fees for attorneys and other professionals, travel costs, plus any other reasonable expenses associated with the adoption. The adoption credit cannot be taken for costs related to intra-family adoptions or costs associated with any surrogacy arrangement. For the adoptive parents to be able to claim an adoption credit, the child must be under 18 years of age or any age and unable to physically or mentally take care of him or herself. The child must also have a social security number, or in the case of a foreign child, an individual tax identification number, or an adoption tax identification number. Resources to assist you in applying for an ITIN or ATIN can be found in the video description. As with many tax credits, there are adjusted gross income limits after which the credit is phased out. The credit starts to be reduced at AGIs over $239,230 and is not available at all to those with AGIs over $279,230. These limits apply to all filing statuses. The adoption credit is non-refundable. However, if your credit for any given year exceeds your tax liability for that year, any unused credit you are not able to take may be carried forward for up to 5 years, or until it is used up, whichever comes first. Any expenses that qualify for the credit must be reduced by any government or employer-provided assistance. Employer-provided adoption assistance is listed in Box 12 of your W-2 with a code T. This amount is not included in your Box 1 wages. The credit is usually limited to any unreimbursed out-of-pocket expenses. However, if you adopt a special needs child, you may claim the entire $15,950 as an adoption credit regardless of actual expenses. The IRS has a specific definition for a special needs child. According to the IRS, a special needs child must be a U.S. citizen, must be a child that a state child welfare agency has taken from the biological parents after determining that they are not and will not be suitable parents, must have additional challenges to adoption, such as being in a sibling group, being an older child in the foster care system for an extended period of time, or in some cases possess physical, mental, or behavioral challenges. These challenges usually require the state to provide financial assistance to the adoptive parents. The adoption process may take months or years to complete, and expenses may be incurred in different years. When may these expenses be used to claim the credit? That depends on whether the adoption is of a U.S. child or a child from a foreign country, and this is where it can get a little complicated. When adopting a child from the United States, any adoption expenses in a given year are used to claim an adoption credit for the subsequent year, unless it is the year the adoption is finalized, in which the expenses can be used to claim the credit in the year they are incurred. Let's look at an example. Ted and Maria adopted Daniel, who is a U.S. citizen and not a special needs child. Ted and Maria had expenses of $2,750 in 2021, $4,500 in 2022, and $1,500 in 2023, which is the year the adoption was finalized. Ted and Maria can use the $2,750 they spent in 2021 to claim a $2,750 adoption credit on their 2022 tax return. They then use the $4,500 they spent in 2022 plus the $1,500 they spent in 2023 to claim a $6,000 credit on their 2023 return. When adopting a child from outside the United States, any expenses that are incurred may only be used to claim the credit in the year the adoption is finalized. So if instead Ted and Maria adopted Zorob from Armenia, their total expenses of $8,750 could only be used to claim the credit in 2023 when the adoption was finalized. If for some reason the adoption fails, they would not be able to claim any adoption credit. If Daniel's adoption had failed, Ted and Maria would still be able to use the $2,750 in expenses they incurred in 2021 to claim an adoption credit on their 2022 tax return. If Daniel was determined to be a special needs child, the $2,750 of expenses incurred in 2021 would be claimed as a $2,750 adoption credit in 2022, and the full credit limit of $15,950 less the $2,750 already claimed, or $13,200, can be claimed as a credit in 2023. Notice that any expenses incurred and used to claim the credit in any given year reduce the maximum credit that can be claimed in subsequent years for that adoption. So, if you claimed an adoption credit of $5,000 in 2023 for an adoption that was not yet complete, the credit limit of $15,950 would be reduced to $10,950 for any expenses incurred in 2024 or afterward. The adoption credit is claimed on Form 8839. Identifying information on the child or children being adopted is entered in Part 1 of the form. Part 2 of the form computes the credit. Lines 2 through 6 takes the eligible adoption expenses and reduces them by any credit previously taken for this child, as well as any employer or government assistance. Lines 7 through 12 apply the AGI limits to the credit and reduces or eliminates the credit if those limits are exceeded. Lines 13 through 16 account for any credit that was carried forward from prior years and compares the total credit to the total tax liability for that year. If the total credit is less than or equal to the tax liability, the entire credit may be taken. If there is excess credit, that amount is carried forward to future years. Part 3 of the form calculates how much of the eligible expenses are reduced by any employer-provided adoption benefits. If the eligible expenses are less than the employer-provided benefits, the excess benefits are taxable and must be reported as income on line 1F of your Form 1040. Here is Ted and Maria's 2023 Form 8839 for Daniel. Only page 1 is shown because in this case neither Ted nor Maria received any employer-provided adoption assistance. Once the final credit has been determined, the credit is entered on line 6C of Schedule 3 and ultimately ends up on line 20 of your Form 1040. The adoption credit can provide a great deal of financial assistance to adoptive parents, especially those who adopt out of their state's child welfare agency. If you'd like to know more about the adoption credit, there are additional resources and information linked in the video description. Please like the video if you found it informative and share it with anyone else who would find it useful. Subscribe if you haven't already for additional oversimplifications of our complex tax system. And of course, your questions, comments, and suggestions are always welcome in the comment space below. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with more of your taxes oversimplified.